So the turkey's done, and now it's time to make the gravy. The easiest way to make the gravy is in the roasting pan that you roasted the turkey in, as long as you have one that's flame-proof and won't warp over a burner. If you don't have a flame-proof roasting pan, you're going to need to do all of this in a saucepan. The first thing you want to do is pour the juices out of the roasting pan into a measuring cup or similar container. The purpose of this is to let all of the fat rise to the top, so we can separate the fat from the juices. We'll use some of the fat to make the roux for the gravy, which is the thickener, and the juices are going to be part of the gravy. So that's going to need a few minutes to do its separating, and then we'll come back to it. So now that the fat has had enough time to separate away from the juices, we can spoon off the fat. Tilt it gently, start skimming. If you have a fat separator cup, that's also a handy way to get rid of the fat. So that's about enough. You don't have to get rid of all of the fat, because once you get down to this level, then you start losing some of your juices too. So we're going to stop there. The next step is to see how much of the juices you have left. It's around 3/4 of a cup. So I'm just going to pour this into a larger measuring cup. And then you want to add enough broth. It can be store-bought broth, it can be homemade broth, whatever you have. You want to add enough broth to that juice to equal the amount of liquid you want to make your gravy. I'd like to make about 1 quart of gravy today, so I'm going to start with 4 cups of liquid. So the next step is to make a roux right in the roasting pan. You can see that we already have some drippings from the turkey, and that's another advantage doing the gravy right in the roasting pan, is that you get all that good stuff back into your gravy. Normally you would make your gravy over 2 burners if your burners were close enough to do that. On this stove we have a center burner, and that's how I usually make the gravy on this stove. So we're going to measure the fat from the turkey back into the roasting pan, and it's 1 tablespoon of fat for every 1 cup of liquid you're going to use. So that's 4 tablespoons of fat from my 4 cups of liquid. So we'll turn the heat on. You want about a medium heat. Next you want to whisk the flour into the fat. Just going to sprinkle it in. It's 1.5 tablespoons of flour for every 1 tablespoon of fat. And so I have 4 tablespoons of fat in this pan, so I'm going to use 6 tablespoons of flour. I'm using a flat whisk, which is a great whisk to use for this kind of gravy making, because it gets down into all the corners. But you can use any whisk that you've got. I'm just going to let that cook for a minute or 2 while we whisk to cook out any raw flour flavor. Okay, so the roux's had a few minutes to cook down. Now I'm going to start adding our liquid slowly at first. This is the way you avoid lumps, to work it in slowly. As it thickens up, add a little more. Once you have something that's more like a sauce consistency, you can add the liquid a little faster. It's only at the beginning that you want to go slow. Okay, now all of our liquid is in, and we want to let it come up to a simmer and simmer for about 5 minutes to really meld the flavors, cook off any additional remaining flour flavor. And while that happens, you can add a little herbs. I like fresh thyme, just to give it a little extra flavor. And keep whisking it occasionally. Don't worry if at first it doesn't look very thick. It'll thicken up more once it comes to a simmer. Okay, so our gravy's been cooking for about 5 minutes now. It's got nice flavor. It's thickened up nicely. If you prefer a thicker gravy, you can just continue to simmer it until it's reduced down to how you like it. So the next step is to strain it. And have ready a medium mesh sieve and any vessel, really. This just happens to be the measuring cup that I used earlier to measure the liquid that went into the gravy. Okay, so I've got that strained. And the last step would just be to taste it and season it how you like it. Salt, pepper, and usually a little lemon juice are what I like to add.